Day is ending, night birds are wending back to the shelter of each little nest they love. Night shades are falling, lovebirds are calling, but what makes the world go round? Nothing but love. When whippoorwills call and evening is nigh, I hurry to my blue heaven. A little white light, and then you turn to the right, will lead you to my blue heaven. You'll see a smiling face, a fireplace, a cozy room, a little nest that's nestled where the roses bloom. Just Molly and me, and baby makes three. We're happy in my blue heaven. A smiling face, a fireplace, a cozy room, a little nest that's nestled where the roses bloom. Just Molly and me, and baby makes three. We're happy in my blue heaven.
Hello and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Xiron free magic secret show, where magic is always free, and we touch upon magic throughout all world history. And one of the recurring things that I talk about on this show is the Kabbalah, specifically the Tree of Life, because it must be mentioned that Kabbalah doesn't mean Tree of Life. Kabbalah just is a whole body of teachings, and the Tree of Life is just one of them. And if you studied the Tree of Life, you know that there is talked of the Qliphoth in the Qliphotic spheres, and it's called the Tree of Death or the Shadow Tree, right? And it's the demonic tree. And the whole idea is that what the Tree of Life represents is everything that is holy. So for something to be holy, something has to be unholy. So what the Qliphoth are is the whole mainframe, the whole power system that the tree represents. It's like everything that is inhumane or discordant with nature, everything that doesn't add up, that's a giant mess. And, people are obsessed with the Qliphoth and trying to travel up the different pathways towards what they think is a certain form of godhood or what have you. So you got to understand the Qliphoth is a really sketchy thing. And the truth is that it didn't really exist until about the 1500s. That's when it got filled in. I thought, and maybe the writer that I'm going to mention is foggy on the notion, but I do remember, or I thought that prior to this author existing, the Qliphoth was talked about a little bit in a vague way, but it was fully developed in the 1500s, at least as much so as it could be. Because it was a banned practice in Judaism, it was kind of like acknowledged that, there was the shadow tree or dark forces, and it wasn't to be touched. It was seen as something else. And then in modern day, everybody who follows the Qliphoth and the system, it's kind of a cobbled together occultist version of it, which is basically just, like I said, it's sketchy, you know, like the powers of it are real. The things it represents are real. The different pathways and whatnot, but it's a sketchy thing. And all of the supposed demonic rulers of the different Qliphotic spheres, this is coming from a list that Cornelius Agrippa provides in the 3 books of occult philosophy. And if you look for it, it won't be listed under Qliphoth. It'll be under the Sephiroth Tree of Life area in that book. It has all like the descriptions and correspondences of the different Sephiroth, and then it lists the archdemon. And if you look at that list, it is identical to the map of the Qliphoth that we see today if you just Google it or go on, you know, various black magic people's websites and whatnot. So I have this book here called Magical Kabbalah for Beginners, a comprehensive guide to occult knowledge by Frater Barabas. So Frater like father, and Barrabbas. So it's a very concise starter's book, which is actually like, even though it just looks like it's a beginner's book, it's actually quite advanced. It's like everything you'd want to know, spoken in a very plain way. It's easy to understand, and it's easy to reference, and it's actually quite helpful. And I think it's a pretty good cornerstone. Like if I just had, you know, to pick 10 books on Kabbalah, this would be one of them. So the back says, discover the history and theory of Kabbalah as well as its practical ritual uses. Explore the 5 basic but essential parts of Kabbalah: the 10 Sephiroth, the 22 paths, the 4 worlds, 3 negative veils, and the Tree of Life. The Kabbalah is the symbolic key to the Western mystery tradition. Gain invaluable insights into all occult systems, including high magic, tarot, astrology, alchemy, hermetics, and more. In Magical Kabbalah for Beginners, Frater Barabas shows ritual magicians, pagans, and occult students how to incorporate the Kabbalah into practice using tables of correspondences, numerology, acronyms and formula, sigils and ciphers, contemplation, and the theurgy of ascension. Now is the time to penetrate the mystical properties of Kabbalah and make them work in your life. So I'm just going to read about this character who developed the Qliphoth, and he lived from 1534 to 1572, and he's called Isaac Luria Ashkenazi. And this is where we get the term Lurianic Kabbalah from. It's from this dude. So here's just a little bit about him real quick. So he was known as the Ari, A-R-I, or Lion. And he's credited for bringing all of the various strains of the Spanish Kabbalah together, synthesizing them into a powerful modern religious system. However, some would say that Luria borrowed heavily from his teacher, Cordovero. Although Luria left very little writing to posterity, the bulk of his teachings were written by his students, most notably Chaim Vital. It was also likely that his students distilled ideas from both Luria and Cordovero, but attributed them to Luria. However, many of the troubling idiosyncrasies and philosophical problems in the Kabbalah were brilliantly and completely resolved exclusively by the teachings of Luria. It was the Ari who developed the concept of the Sephiroth as divine personalities, arranging them into 3 pillars, thereby creating a cosmogonic dialectic, and saw them as the dynamically changing and evolving manifestation of the will and mind of the deity. He also developed the notion of the 4 Kabbalistic worlds and resolved the issue of how the infinite, unmanifest Godhead was able to create a finite material world through the mysterious artifice of contraction, concealment, and veiling, which he theorized as the necessary generation of a vacuum of empty space prior to creation. Isaac Luria also developed the speculation that later became the Qliphoth, which he described as the shattering of the 6 Sephiroth above Malkut. This shattering, Shivara, allowed for the incursion of evil into the world, and it caused the dispersal of all those points of light from the shards of the broken Sephiroth that ultimately became the souls of humanity. It was also the source of a mythic and psychological drama associated with the restoration, tikkun, of those spiritual sparks that had become individual human entities, now divided into 4 specific parts of the soul. With the dispersal of those sparks of light, a process of restoration was also determined by the deity, made possible through the agency of a cosmic messiah. Luria's teachings had a powerful messianic quality, particularly when he predicted that the cosmic messiah was imminent, and that the event of restoration would also begin the ending of the world, as the Messiah collected all of the spirits of humanity as the myriad points of light and delivered them up to the deity. After his death, Luria's teachings, for a time, eclipsed all other teachings and became part of the Jewish mainstream. The messianic tensions found in his teachings, along with his various vague apocalyptic pronouncements, ultimately produced the heresies of the aborted Shabbatai Zevi Messianic Crusade, which is a really wacky story in and of itself. So now I got to skip forward just a little bit here. So here's the whole section and just what it says about the Qliphoth. A number of occultists have, over the last few decades, written about the Qliphoth or Qlipha, singular, and some have stipulated that there is a tree of evil or death in addition to the tree of life, acting as its reverse or negative image. This seems to be a theme expressed by some adherents of the left-hand path, and some have proposed a tree of evil, and though it assign a quasi-hierarchy for the various lists of evil spirits and devils that supposedly populate the material world. Having 2 such trees allows a student the duality of choosing one or the other, and perhaps going from one to the other. According to Genesis, there were 2 sacred trees in the Garden of Eden. One was indeed the tree of life, but the other wasn't its opposite. The other tree was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Since humankind ate from the latter and not the former, we have the power and potential of knowing truth on all levels of being, but we are not immortal. Yet the scriptures never mention a tree of evil, so one would have to assume that it is apocryphal or even a recent urban myth. Some of these themes are discussed more fully in chapter 6, where the origin of evil is examined. It is likely that the problem of explaining the occurrence of evil caused some of the Spanish Kabbalists to conjecture on a tree of evil. However, there is another way of interpreting the Qliphoth and determining how they fit into the overall scheme of the Kabbalah without having to propose 2 opposing trees. The word Qliphoth or Qlipha comes from the Hebrew root Qlph, which means to peel off, and the noun means husk, shell, or rind. Qlipha, therefore, means in Hebrew shell or the outer covering of some kind of fruit or nut. When applied to the Kabbalah, it has been variously interpreted as a kind of afterbirth or discarded element. It could even be defined as a previously failed attempt at creation, in abortion, but only if one doubted the perfection of the Godhead. Still, there is another meaning to the word that would allow it to merge into the tree of life, but only if we can overcome the basic prejudice built up by the previous definitions. The Qliphoth could simply be the outer shell or husk of the corresponding Sephiroth, and in actuality, it would function more like a socket or the bottom foundation of a specific Sephirah. In other words, the Qliphoth are the backside or unconscious dimensions of the Sephirotic tree of life. Based on this revelation, the Qliphoth are neither evil nor the negative partners to the Sephiroth in the tree of life. The troubling tree of evil or death disappears, and in its place, the night side and light side of the one holy tree. Just as we human beings have a light and dark side, so too does the tree of life. But that dark side represents neither a duality nor a split between good and evil. As the glyph of the tree of life is outwardly defined, all of the elements contained within it are seen as a unified whole, and that includes the Sephiroth, pathways, and even the Qliphoth. I have found it most productive to see the Qliphoth as the arising potential for Sephiroth. They are, in a word, the unmanifest potential, first laid down by the emanations of the negative veils. The fusion of Sephira and Qliphoth is seamless, but each represents a different kind of spiritual quality and hierarchy. One can't enter into the corresponding Qliphoth from the Sephira, since through the Sephira, they are both perfectly united. The backside of the Tree of Life can only be accessed through the portal of the Gateway of Dayat, which is also the gateway of the Greater Abyss. Therefore, the individual Qliphoth can be acquired and realized only by someone passing through the Gateway of Dayat. Otherwise, their influences are nearly invisible except through the periodic subtle dark emanations coming from the abysmal gateway. Some have called these dark emanations the heartbeat of darkness itself. It is my belief that the Qliphoth contains all of the unknown and invisible chthonic proto-elements of our spiritual, mental, and physical worlds. Atavisms, archaisms, and dark inner pathways connect the backside of the Tree of Life, like the endless tunnels of the catacombs underneath Rome or Paris. The light side of the Tree of Life has only 22 pathways, but the backside has as many possible permutations for pathways as there are Sephiroth. Thus, all of the Sephiroth are interconnected with wormholes below the surface and at the level of the Qliphoth. The underworld domain of the backside of the Tree of Life is populated with dead ancestors, gods and goddesses of the underworld, and the various demonic and sub-elemental spirits and powers. Aleister Crowley, Kenneth Grant, and other occultists have taken some incomplete information from Jewish Kabbalistic sources and have given names, qualities, and rulers to the 10 anti-Sephiroth of the Qliphoth. I have found their work to be quite weak and incomplete, based as it is upon a decidedly Jewish monotheistic mystical bias, which I think is contrary to any practical magical workings with these forces. These anti-Sephiroth themes likely originated in the 13th century from the Castile Isaac HaKohen school of the Kabbalah, which was more occultic, Gnostic, and based wholly within the art of theurgy. I would recommend that the forces and spirits of the Qliphoth and their wormhole pathways be examined as merely the negative source potentials for the obverse Sephiroth and glyph-determined pathways. If they have any names or qualities, it would not be just a reversed mirror image of the surface structures of the tree. They would be the veritable archaic sources for those structures. The backside of the Tree of Life is without morals and spiritual values, and is therefore beyond good and evil. See the table of correspondences of the 10 Sephiroth and Dayat on the following pages. Blah, 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 blah. So that's your quick run through. I just wanted to do that and throw that out there. So as always, hit the subscribe button. Let people know I exist. Post these videos on Facebook or Reddit or wherever you go. I don't know what the kids do these days. There will be more episodes in the future. And yakety smackety. I think I've talked long enough. So anyway, hail Arkham, and here's your hot rockin' outro for the evening. Later, kids.